And we're live. A little bit later than originally planned because of some unforeseen technical issues. As Catherine Rose will be with us again very shortly. We just need to get her phone to allow her to use the microphone. The video worked, but sadly not the microphone. Catherine, welcome back.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
It didn't like my browser, I'm
It.
afraid. Sorry about
Oh
that.
no, that's absolutely okay. Welcome.
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm glad we got that sorted out.
Gotta love technology.
You gotta love technology indeed. It is very good to have you on the show. Thank you for
Thanks for asking me.
joining.
I'm
Uh,
wearing my rosette. Hope you can see that.
uh. Oh, hang on a second. No, I want Catherine. God, never
I'm
mind.
wearing
Hang
my
on.
Green
There
Party
we go. Oh,
rosette. Yeah.
it's because you're vertical.
I think yeah, I think you've got two of me as well, because I think I'm still logged in on the other side, but never mind. Anyway, shoot. Tell me what you want to
Oh,
know.
loads of technical issues today. What is going on? It's one of those Mondays where nothing seems to be working quite right technically.
Yeah, that's right.
He's in the waiting room. Okay. How can I? Ooh, Gavin. There's 1 second. We've got one more. Yes, of course. That link that I sent him didn't work. See, so many technical foobar. Sorry, we'll cut this. We'll fix it in post.
Okay. No worries.
Let's just give Gavin 2 seconds to join. I can't send him a direct message on here, but that's fine. Oh, no, I can't. Come on, Gavin. Sorry, now you have to wait for me.
Oh well, shall I sing a little song or
No, there he
something?
is. There he is. Hey!
Good
Hi,
evening. Good
Gavin.
evening, Catherine.
Hello.
God, so many technical challenges today. I'm so glad to see you all.
Well, you're here. We're here now. We're here now.
We're here. Let's stick with this layout. Good to see you. Catherine,
Yes.
do you want to do an introduction of to those watching who don't know who Catherine Rose is?
Well, who is Catherine Rose? I sometimes wonder myself. The reason I'm here today is that I'm with you, Axel, co-chair of Milton Keynes Green Party. We're currently working together with the local party to try and get elected in the local elections. We're trying to become part of the Green Wave. I myself, I'll just give you a bit of background about me. I'm actually trained as a classical musician, as a horn player and a conductor. I don't play the horn professionally anymore, but I conduct a local orchestra and a wind band and a couple of choirs. And I've got behind me quite a long career in arts education consultancy, working with lots of wonderful musicians, but also theatre and dancers and all kinds of people over the years. I'm not doing that now. I've just recently retrained as a forest school leader, which I'm just developing now. But I'm carrying on with my performing. And I've been a member of the Green Party since 2014. Gosh, that's quite a long time now, 8 years. But actually interested in green politics ever since I was a young un. I never really felt I fitted into a political party until fairly recently. I suppose I was, like a lot of us, inspired by Caroline Lucas getting elected and starting to feel maybe we can make something happen. So that's me. I live in Oney, in the north part of Milton Keynes, the bit that doesn't get a lot of attention paid to it, it has to be said, which kind of maybe gives me a bit of an advantage.
I think
We'll
Gavin
see.
is in a similar position, aren't you, Gavin? You're kind of very close to Milton Keynes, closer than Olney, in fact, but
Just the other side of Stony Stratford, the west side of Stony Stratford.
the
So,
west
yeah.
side. Yeah. Catherine, thank you. And Gavin, thanks for joining today as well. Before we really kick off, I just want to stress that this is not a Green Party event. This is a completely, Axel and his friends talking to interesting people event. This is also no, you leave it on. Leave it on. Absolutely, we're all for shameless self-promotion. In fact, I'm hoping people come on this show and promote themselves and what they're doing and telling everybody the amazing stuff they're doing. I mean, you just touched on it. You said you've come from the arts and you've moved into forestry. You got to explain this to us. How do you go from conducting orchestras, which is still something you're doing, I think, to running a political party and becoming a forestry teacher?
I mean, the orchestra is a kind of forest, really. It's got a lot of wood in it anyway, a lot of violins and cellos and things like that. And also the instrument I play, it started off as a hunting instrument. So there's kind of a few links. But actually, I've been interested in nature since I was a tiny tot, as long as I can remember. And when we were kids, we were always, my mother would shout as we ran out of the door, "Lunch is at 1," and we'd just disappear. We lived near the sea. We'd go down the shore. We'd light fires and cook food. We'd climb trees. That love of nature that's nurtured very young never leaves you. And I think a lot of young people are really disconnected from nature. And when COVID came, and I got COVID, and I have long COVID, and I just thought I'm going to take the opportunity to do something different. And I've taken this retraining course. And I'm hopefully going to be starting my own forest school sessions after Easter. So it's been really interesting. It's been I've met a lot of really different people from what I would normally meet in my musical life or my education life. Well, most of them are teachers, but a lot of them working with very young pupils. And I've met a lot of beautiful trees as well, wonderful insects.
Young
Little mice.
saplings and
Yes.
old oaks.
Ancient ash trees up in Hollington Wood, just up on the hill here. So yeah, hopefully trying to use the outdoors to educate, not just to educate about the outdoors, to educate about teamwork, about thinking, about developing skills, about organizing yourself, about making plans for your own learning. That's the ethos really of forest school. It's not just going out into the woodlands and having a jolly time. It's very focused, actually. You can do things with tool use. You can do things with learning about nature. You can make up games. You can do all sorts of things. It's very exciting, and you have to be outdoors.
I think because I was brought up in Scotland, I was very lucky to be brought up with, I walked through the woods on the way back from school, etc. And I think that what you were saying about, the connection with nature for the education and us having lost that connection. I made the conscious, or my wife and I made the conscious decision when my wife was pregnant that we were going to move out of London, that we weren't going to bring up children in London. And pros and cons, I'm now, it's mum and dad's taxi now with teenagers. I mean, thankfully one's driving, the other one I'm going to pick up in a couple of hours, strangely enough. So there is, you could say that there's that side of this, the social development, but I would say it far outweighs, and even, my kids are 16 and 19 now, they can make, they have their own views of the world, but they understand the value of actually a connection with nature. They're both, listen to the music, wear hoodies, drive Vauxhall courses, do everything else that normal young people do, But I mean, two things. I think the awareness in the youth of today, which sounds very patronizing, but I really don't mean it to be like that, it is far greater than what we see in 30 somethings, 40 something, 50 somethings, because they're going to inherit this. So they have a very different kind of frame of view of what's going to be coming to the world, what they're going to see, what they're not going to see. So I admire what you're doing, and I wish I was young then.
Well, I'm not very young, so I'm trying to pass on what I know and what I think and what I can offer, as before I'm too old to do it. I actually feel that a lot of young people are still quite divorced from the natural world. You hear, I mean, it's actually one of the things that drives my politics as much as anything. But some of the anecdotes that I've read about, or sort of case studies, shouldn't call them anecdotes really, in forest school teaching, there was one where actually you can do forest school in the middle of London if you can find somewhere. You can do it in a park or even a garden or a churchyard. But there was one where they were doing some in Epping Forest, and there was a boy called Michael who was about 6 years old, and he was asked to walk across the grass to where the forest school was meeting, and he didn't want to walk on the grass. He'd never walked on grass before. He'd got to the age of 6, and he only ever walked on pavements or in the playground on that kind of soft floor covering, ground cover, and he didn't know how to pick up his feet to walk over a rough surface. And sometimes it's as basic as that you have to teach a kid not to be frightened of mud or to instantly kill a bug. Even here in Milton Keynes, where I was doing my training, I met a couple of boys who, whenever they found a bug, their first instinct was to hit it with their fist. Boom, smash. And they had to be told, no, you don't kill creatures. You nurture them, you learn about them, you say, what is this worm or beetle or fly? What does it do? Why is it here? What is its place in the world? And we can't say whether or not a fly or a worm has feelings, but they certainly have sentience. Yeah, they certainly have a kind of sentience. They may not be able to read Aristotle, but they can.
But they're all part of the food. They're part.
And they're all part of the food chain. Yeah.
Need to function. One of my I read something earlier this year about Yellowstone Park in the States, and they. Obviously, a lot of the animals have been taken out of the park over the years. The wolves have shot anything that bites, shoot it, trap it, and then things run away, etc. And they reintroduced. They had a small project reintroducing beavers, and they were reintroduced about 15 years ago or something. And what this did was, because the beavers put the dams up, and actually the beavers brought back some bits of dams that they found that were over 100 years old. The beavers had actually found that's the right place. But anyway, because the water levels rose, the more shrubbery and short foliage grew, so smaller grazing animals came to get water. Because it was grazing animals, there's more predatory animals because of it. And actually introducing the beaver, which nobody had any great plan that this was going to, I love this, where nature proves the value of one piece, in the bigger puzzle. And it was reintroducing the beaver that actually has created this resurgence over the last 10, 15 years of deer, small animals, and even wolves.
Well, I think that also there's been a lot of beaver reintroduced in the UK, and you can see how it benefits not just wildlife and the ecosystems, but it benefits human settlements as well, because it is a great preventer of flooding. And we see what's happening with Storm Franklin in the north of England at the moment, and it's pretty horrific. People getting flooded out of their homes and businesses, in some cases for the third time in 10 years. We have to restore the systems that help us to keep functioning. And I think that, rewilding, there's a very interesting book. In fact, I might just have it over here somewhere, called Wilding. I'm going to just go and get it. It's down here somewhere because I was reading it just, here it is. Here it is, by Isabella Tree. And it's all of, can I hold that up? I can't quite get I can't, because I'm on my phone, I can't quite.
Back a bit. Oh, cool. That's a nice cover as well.
There we go.
And it's by Isabella Tree, and it's about the estate at Knepp, Knepp, where they've completely rewilded an old farm landscape that was basically ploughed up to feed us during the Second World War. And it's extraordinary what they've done. They've got storks come back. They've got nightingales. It's a buzz with insects the whole time. I mean, the lack of insect life is terrifying.
Yes.
And insects are the absolute. You talk about the food chain. I'm not mad keen on the phrase the food chain. Not least because it does imply that there's kind of like something at the bottom and it just goes up. And I think it's much more complex than that. But the ecosystem where we are, we sometimes occupy more than one niche. We may have several different functions within it, and it's not just a chain, it's a network, it's a matrix, if you like. And there's some very interesting stuff in there, and about how trees talk to each other underground, how they communicate via underground networks which extend beyond their roots. It's absolutely extraordinary what you learn from that. And the wolves and the beavers at Yellowstone are just another very striking example of that.
There's a pun. Sorry, Gary. There's a pun in there somewhere, but I'm not quick enough tonight to make that work.
I mean, I wouldn't mind rewilding only. We're just about to start planting a community orchard in a field that's just down over there, and that's part of the allotment. There's a field, and there's some extraordinarily visionary people. You have these people in a very quiet way locally, Elaine Merchant and Rowan Wedge, who've got together, and they've got a group of us together, and we are planting a community orchard. And
amazing.
My job is going to be to wassail it.
To what? What's that?
To wassail it. When
you something bad?
No, it's great. It's a brilliant old English tradition that's normally done around about the 15th of January, which is known as the Little New Year. Okay. And you go round and you wear a motley coat. You have a coat with lots of coloured things hung on it, and you wear a hat and bells, and you wear and you have cider to drink, and you wassail actually comes from the ancient English. The hail bit is a greeting, and you sing a wassailing song, and you pour a libation of cider to each of the trees, and you hang little bits of toast in the trees. You hang them on the branches of the tree, which is to get the birds and the insects back in amongst the branches, and you make a huge noise. You have drums and you have pans and sticks, and you beat out a rhythm, whatever your rhythm is, and you walk round and sing to the trees. And it's
hit them with a rhythm stick. That's from a song.
No, you don't hit the tree. You don't hit the tree. You have a drum or a pan or a bell or whatever or you could blow a little horn or something like that. You have to make a lot of noise. What does it do?
If you pardon my ignorance for ancient British traditions, I have the same ignorance everywhere, by the way, for every kind of folk tradition, but mostly for German folk traditions, because that's where I come from. But what does it do? What's the background for this tradition?
Well, I think it probably comes from as all of these type of things do, it comes from an actual thing you have to do, which is go around and inspect the trees in the winter to make sure they're okay. And then perhaps you get this thing like, oh, we need to get the birds back in the branches. Let's put a bit of bread in the branches. Or while we're here, let's have a drop of hot cider because it's a bit chilly. Let's call down a blessing on the trees. And it it goes back to, I guess, Druidical times. Probably it's not particularly Christian.
I've got a question.
Yeah.
I'm here with two Green Party members, and I'm not a Green Party member. Two questions, actually. One, my first question is, why should I join the Green Party? Then my follow-up question, which is, well, actually, it is for both of you. As we live with Milton Keynes as our centre, and it's full of wonderful trees, and the Parks Trust does this amazing job of looking after all our green spaces. How do we actually bring the carbon footprint down of Milton Keynes? So first, why should I join? Second, how do we bring the carbon footprint down for Milton Keynes?
Shall I go first, Axel? I may
it.
never stop talking is the problem.
Go for it.
I mean, the problem with joining what you might call non-mainstream party, I don't even like that idea, is that our electoral system is biased because it's first past the post.
Yep.
But almost all of the beneficial policies that now the mainstream parties are taking on, carbon footprint reduction, better agricultural practices, universal benefit, various things. Almost all of them actually originated in the Green Party. 40 years ago, we were saying these things and people were saying, no, that's crazy. That's all a bunch of weird hippie rope sandal people. Yeah. I've just got to say, I've never really been a rope sandal myself. I'm more a kind of silk dress in front of an audience, kind of person. The importance of strengthening the green voice in our really faulty parliamentary system and voting system is really up there with it for me, actually raising awareness of it and increasing the green vote. And if you join the party, then you're giving them some money, which we can use to campaign. You might even be like to go around and maybe, deliver a few leaflets. Yeah. Deliver a few leaflets for me.
People want me knocking on their door with a leaflet.
Yeah, absolutely. Look at that. Just, I write these and Axel designs them for me. So, there we are. Deliver leaflets, actually get the knowledge out there that people can make a change. And I think that the other big thing about the Green Party, which I think is crucial, I mean, we don't take donations from corporations.
Yes.
We only take
not even Russian oligarchs. Just to stress that, unlike some people.
It's sometimes we do take money from companies under very special circumstances, but they always go through a rigorous process of due diligence where we work out whether they are in fact green enough, and that if we take their money, we're not going to have any comeback, and we never ever put ourselves in a position where we owe something to somebody other than the people who vote for us. And that's so crucial for me. It means we're poor. It means we're monetarily poor, but it means we can really stand up and say, hand on heart, we are not in hock to anybody because nobody's allowed to put us in that position. I mean, up the road here at one of the villages that's part of the Only ward, there is a huge new housing estate. Very, very gorgeous new houses. It's extremely, I mean, I should think the cheapest one of them is going to be £400,000. And it's all built on the side of a hill. And somebody has built a big trench, dug a big trench all the way along the bottom for drainage, which is not on the plans. And our local councillors are all Tories, and the company that's building the houses is a donor to the Tory party.
That's good.
So Yeah,
works.
I can go in there and say this is not on, which I will be doing very soon. But they can't because they'll lose money.
They can't
Now,
speak out.
yeah, exactly. So we're very much an independent voice, and we're not whipped either. I mean, I am allowed to say what I think works locally, even if it is not compliant with what's going on, on a wider basis. But let's see. Your other question was,
How do we make, because obviously Milton Keynes is fairly green anyway, we have lots of lovely trees. We do have lots
yeah.
of roads, but we don't have lots of trees. How are we going to make Milton Keynes greener? Because there's not that many spaces to rewild or anything. How do we, because it's densely populated, how do we make a change?
Yeah, I mean, it's not that densely populated. In fact, it's very, very low density population in Milton Keynes. If you look at other, even if you look at a street in Northampton, where how high up it goes and how close together the houses are, but if you look at somewhere like Luton or Bedford, where there are a lot more blocks of flats and that kind of thing, there is not a very high density of population. It's very, very spread out, and that was the original plan for Milton Keynes. Every household would have a tree. The roads would be yay wide, and there would be this many trees on each road, and that's gone by the wayside with new planning. I mean, I feel that the new planning that Milton Keynes Council is going after, like their life depends on it. I mean, the southeast Milton Keynes area near Woburn Sands, the Milton Keynes East bit, which is just by Newport Pagnell, and just it's actually within the Only Ward area, but it's going to be 5,000 houses. And I don't think it's going to come under Only jurisdiction from that point of view. I think it'll be a separate. These first of all, these should not be built here. It's sucking people in from the north and from elsewhere to make the southeast ever more crowded. It's going to increase traffic. It's going to increase the number of it's going to increase the need for infrastructure and for health and schools and all the kind of things that they're going to have to build. But the leader of Milton Keynes Council is very, very keen on all of this. And I think we shouldn't be doing that. It's all within what's called the Oxford-Cambridge arc. The houses themselves should be held to a very, very much higher standard than current housing is. It should not have gas at all. They should have heat pumps. They should have solar power. They should have. They should be built to what's called passive house standards. The passive house is a house that doesn't need any actual outside energy source, because it generates everything itself.
We've kind of lost the spirits, because you were talking about the when Milton Keynes was designed, the densities, the spirit that designed Milton Keynes, the old black leather jacket gang, the pioneering. We have a shopping centre with still the greatest amount of natural light per square footage in Europe, the most accessible shopping centre in Europe. They did pioneering things. Where's that spirit gone in Milton Keynes?
Yeah, well, that's I agree with you there, and I think that also the fact that Milton Keynes was really absolutely made for the car. It wasn't supposed to be. It was supposed to have a monorail. It should really have trams, in my view, but it hasn't. But the other thing I wanted to say about housing stock, because one of the greatest emitters of carbon is heating and refrigeration, including air conditioning. And our housing stock, even after all the new houses have been built, the housing stock of the UK will still be 80% old houses. And those old houses need to be retrofitted with boring old insulation, boring old double glazing and triple glazing. And that will make a huge difference.
It is, but it's also the approach people to. I have a friend, Mukti, that he's a bit of a character. He runs Carbon Savvy, and he has a company that specializes in insulating 14th, 15th, and 16th century houses.
Excellent.
And he's won awards for it. They're very specialist stuff, but there are some landowners there that actually do care about their land, the environment. It's a bit of an exception rather than a rule. It's wonderful to see that work going on, but I completely agree, because I'm the other side of the 4,500 on the west side of Milton Keynes houses, and I'm aghast at the quality or lack of insulation, lack of, in this day and age, with the knowledge that we actually have, and also, with energy prices going up, etc. If you have a well-insulated house, those are less painful. And these
exactly. I mean, people talk about affordable housing. The truly affordable house is one that's cheap to run. And actually, we have so many houses that are cheap to build but expensive to run, and that is completely the wrong way round. I actually feel that, it's been seen elsewhere in Strood, for example, which I think is in Gloucestershire. I can't remember exactly. There's a green council, and they have brought up the level of building requirements, and for not just for new housing but for renovations and stuff. And people said, oh, but you've got to hit the minimum standards, you can't go above them. And yes, you can. And this council could decide to say, no, we are going to have better building standards, greener building standards than we're actually required to do by the government. But they haven't so far done that.
Angry. It really makes me so angry.
At the moment, here in Oni, they're digging up the road in order to extend the gas pipeline to our new development up on Warrington Road. And I'm like, why are we even using gas?
Yeah. But we're just, the Tories, the government has just announced that it's all about heat pumps and, going electric and being all kind of environmentally friendly. And we look at these new build estates that spring up, especially Milton Keynes, which is going to expand, double in size in the next 20 years. It's crazy. We're still building really cheap, awful stuff. And then you've got situations where you've got loads of council-owned estates in Milton Keynes, like Netherfield or Lakes Estate, which are, if you've ever been to a property there, I'm sure the residents will inform you of the quality of the house or the property that they are habitating. And holy moly. The council's just said in Milton Keynes they're going to put, 400 homes or 300 homes or something. They're going to improve it, Netherfield, that is. It's like, well, you should have done that decades ago. Why is this being neglected? Why has it been neglected, let alone the new build stuff? So the question is really, what can we as the public in Milton Keynes do to not force is probably the wrong thing, but how can we sway? How can we convince the powers that be to please start building more sustainable houses? And how can we get them to improve on the housing stock that we have?
I think it's something we really need to lobby our council about. But as I mentioned before, once a developer has been given the go-ahead, there's very little you can do. They make their plans and they're very secret. Again, with the Warrington estate, I went up and looked. Well, we went up, didn't we, Axel? And we had a chat with the guy who was actually building it. And he said, oh yeah, come and look at the plans, make a date with our secretary. And I contacted the secretary, and it took me a fortnight to get to talk to her. And she said, no, you can't, because we're not the developers, we're just the builders. You'd have to talk to the developers. I'll get them to ring you.
And around the houses we go.
Yeah. Did they ever know they didn't? Yeah. But the other thing I think is really upsetting is that although our local council talks a good talk with the green things, our council leader, often says, oh, it's our future generations, etc., etc. I mean, Milton Keynes is something like 49%. It's only halfway down the list of councils that are doing best on green areas. Then they talk themselves up and they say we're going to be the greenest city in the world by 2013. Well, sorry, darling, but I don't think you are. Not at the rate you're going. So one of the things I would do if I were elected is that I would hold their feet to the fire on every single one of those issues. I would be standing up and saying, so what is the carbon emissions on this scheme that you've just want to give the go ahead to? What is how clean are the rivers and the canals actually flowing through Milton Keynes? What is the situation with sewage? How clean are the transport plans that you're putting in place? Why are you not doing this and why are you not doing that? That's what I would love to be able to do.
I think one of the challenges, and Axel knows that, I do kind of hold the title activism slightly more in than politicizing with the green side of things, because I lot to unpack there. I think Milton Keynes. I think we benefit from some great visionary planning that started us, and suffer from small council syndrome in managing it. We were given something pioneering, something amazing. How the land drainage worked, how the forestry worked, how the reforestation worked. We were given an amazing thing, and people just sat on the throne. I worked with the council for many years, not for actually the last 10 years, no, because I think I got kind of slightly bored of it, but I threw myself at the windshield of change, and was a trustee with the community foundation, and this, that, and the next, and worked with the council. And part of the challenge I always find is that people don't like being berated. It's a very natural thing. Nobody likes being told you're wrong. Nobody likes the wagging finger of accusation being pointed at them, and that is a huge challenge within politics, because I completely agree with the positioning of what the Green Party do, and you never know, I might even consider joining. But I think the challenge with the political side of things is, people will still go out and buy their white Range Rover because they saw somebody on Instagram with the white Range Rover. To me, that it's the top heavy, it's the cultural changes that we've got to make. And I know you can't make them at a local level, and Axel knows that. I'm controversially, but one of the things we were talking about the other week with Jill was, because I was making the point that unfortunately in life, however good we make it, people will still be stupid enough to want to spend £4,000 on a designer handbag. Whether we like it or not. So what we can do is make sure that designer handbag doesn't damage the environment, or actually does something positive. There's a designer in New York that uses old fire hoses, which have to be disposed of. And fire stations used to have to pay for them to be disposed of each year, so to change each year. She buys all of them now, all of them in America, and makes them into belts and handbags, and uses this faux crocodile stuff that's vegan, and makes this amazing stuff, but it's couture. It's 800 quid, £1,000, £5,000 for a belt. So there is a little bit of, we have to feed the monster, but if we feed the monster with the right things, things can get better.
Are you on commission?
No,
Are you secretly trying to get me to get you one of those handbags? Sorry, man bags.
For Christmas, mate. No, but I just think it's because it's the difference between getting people to come with you, and taking on the fight. Because it's a big fight.
Those are two different things. And what I was saying just now about holding the council's feet to the fire, those are politicians whose job it is actually to do what they say they're going to do. Those people need holding to account, and they expect to be held to account. Perhaps they may have got a little bit more complacent than they need to be. But
how are we holding them to account at the moment, Catherine?
Well,
in the local context,
my thought, and we'll take that. The people that Gavin is talking about are the general population, and that's a different thing. And I do agree with you. It's about persuasion. It's about saying, look at this incredibly cool thing, look at these fabulous trees, look at this amazing bag that's been made out of a fireman's hose, and whatever. And actually the PR and persuasive side of things, in a sense, that's not my job. The job of the Green Party is to get elected and to hold people to account and to try and get action. So at that level. So I think the job of, there's a certain amount of that, but there are other groups that actually do that. And to answer Axel's question, are they being held to account? We try. We have this wonderful Green Party member called Alan Francis, who I'm sure you've seen, who's been in the Green Party for 40 years and stood in elections for 45 years. And he's constantly getting up, asking questions. I'm afraid I don't do that, and I should probably do more of it. But he and he coordinates our responses to consultations. Only the other night we were having a group, a working group meeting about the LC WIP, which is the local cycling and walking infrastructure planning consultation, and we've had a group about that. We're going to have an open meeting about it, and we take all the results of that to the council and say, okay, what are you doing about this? And actually, if you look at the consultations and the papers that come out of the council that are on green issues, they're on housing, transport, the things that are specifically green issues, you will often see the name, in the list of names of people who've responded to the consultation, you'll see the Green Party, you'll see the bus users group, which Alan also runs, and you'll see individual names, which are names of Green Party committee and members, because they've been encouraged to respond to these consultations. So that is the way we can do it without having members actually on the council at the moment. I might need a cup of tea in a minute. All this talking.
It's all good, but I think the good thing about having debates like this, though, is because and part of the reason I think Axel started this is people aren't exposed to these debates. Unfortunately, the mainstream media, it's very, very little. It's always the fluffy panda that gets saved story that is the green story. There's no real in-depth coverage about home installation. There's no in-depth coverage about rewilding projects, about nature enhancement projects, about it does. So I think these debates are very healthy because it helps educate the people that wouldn't normally have these debates.
Exactly, and I think one of the reasons why I asked Catherine is I joined the Green Party first of all because you and Alan and Jill, I think, knocked on my door a few years back, and because I've got two small children who hold me to account and say, Daddy, why is the planet on fire? Why is there 3 mega storms in a week? Why is the Arctic melting and old viruses coming back from the 10,000 years ago? This is what I'm doing to kind of being held to account by the next generation. But yes, Gavin, I started this because I talked to a good old friend of mine. I won't mention his name. He might not appreciate it, but there isn't anything. There is greenwashing. I was just talking to Estelle and Jill this morning about scouring the news sources, MKFM, MK Citizen. I mean, those are corporate bodies anyway that rely on ads. They're not really doing journalism. They're selling adverts. If you are a member of those outfits, I'll be happy to be corrected. Come on the show and let us know what you do to hold people to account. But the stuff that I'm reading is paid editorials. It is press releases that are, and my video's gone again. Apologies. They're basically lazily rewritten press releases that the council or parties put out about stuff that they're supposedly doing, and there's nothing, at least not in Milton Keynes, that actually challenges them and says, well, what are you doing with Netherfield, and to what standard are you improving these houses? They're all just sound bites. There's nothing fundamental. And then when you look at the new build areas, I'm coming off my soapbox in a second, guys.
No, it's okay.
The new build areas, like the estate we looked at in Olney, or this other thing where they're building 970 odd houses and 300 will be eco houses, and 2 of them will be affordable to people who've just won the lottery. It's disgusting because it's all just sound bites. And then, like you said, Catherine, the actual planning papers, they're down in a dark cellar with the light bulb removed, with triple locks. I'm trying to quote Douglas Adams and I'm failing, but
you can catch my drift. It's saying beware of the leopard.
Exactly, a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Yeah. It's like that. It's willfully. Gavin knows what I mean when I say dark pattern. It's willfully designed to be inaccessible and be undemocratic, I would argue. I would say anything that is so badly hidden from public view and inquiry is undemocratic, and it needs to be challenged almost legally if possible. I'm going to fix my camera now, and I'm going to go on mute. Thanks.
We were out protesting against the police and the bill that was going to criminalise protest. We were out. It was only a small protest, but it was a pretty vocal one, and we were finding a lot of people who were, walking past who were saying, "Yes, I agree with you. That protest must not be silenced in this country." It's something that not a lot of people have a huge appetite for. I am not somebody who's been at Greenham Common, and I've been on quite a few marches, especially about Brexit. About the Iraq War, but I don't have the physical strength to do what some of these guys do, tying themselves to trees and lying down in front of bulldozers. I just don't have that. I have something else, which is the gift of the gab, and I can I'm reasonably fearless when it comes to talking, which a lot of people aren't.
Maybe that's what we do. We should swap memberships. I'll become a member of the Green Party, and you can become a member of XR.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I haven't become a member of XR. I've followed what they do, and I know a lot of XR people, and I know that is not my place in the scheme of things. I wouldn't be any good. And I think there's a tremendous overlap between the people who are in XR and the people who are trying to, our furrow is the political furrow, and that's the one we're actually ploughing. And hopefully, I can take this metaphor quite a long way, can't I? Hopefully the seeds that we're planting will soon sprout and turn into massive trees and so
you can cut them down in a sustainable way and turn them into what are these things called? Batons. What do you do to conduct an orchestra?
A baton, yes.
A baton, yeah.
A baton, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are wood, right?
Yes, they are. Yes, you can get fiberglass one. Sorry.
There's a very good point that you make that we need the XRs, we need the Insulate Britons, we need the Green Party, we need all these groups that are lobbying in all different directions, because even all put together, our voice is still, quite, maybe more passionate, but quieter than the mainstream, as you say, being able to actually have public input to something that is being built, 100 yards, 1,000 yards, a mile away from where you live, and built to a relevant standard, to Axel's point, in a week where we've just seen 3 storms. So
yes, exactly.
Build things.
And we've seen so many hundreds of trees come down, and the big old trees are suffering. And yet at the same time, we've had we've had something like 40% of our electricity needs generated by wind power. So the effects of climate change are helping us combat the effects of climate change. But actually, in fact, wind power does hover around kind of somewhere between 39 and 46%, something like that. It's a surprisingly huge amount now of what we do. And one of the things that I see happening, which is now it's becoming so normalized, people know that combustion engines won't be available soon, and so they are having to change to electricity. I mean, the electric car is not a panacea. It still has to be built. It still has to use rare metals, which are produced in questionable circumstances, let's say, in some cases, thinking of Bolivia, and the lithium mines. And also, they are still rolling about on roads, which have to be, the roads still have to be there, and car parks have to be there, and there's still a carbon footprint in actually producing all these things. However, it's become incredibly normalized now to have a hybrid or an EV. When I first had my first EV, everybody was like, "Oh, how amazing! Tell me all about it." Now nobody turns a hair. because everybody's, there's at least one on every street. And I think actually that came from a policy that was made actually by our government, which was to say we're going to withdraw combustion engines. And I think that policy is terribly, terribly important. If you actually say we are going to hold new builds to this level of insulation, we are going to retrofit to this level of insulation, we are going to encourage these things, then it does happen. And this is the kind of the rather beautiful side of politics that we don't see much of.
I would like to counter that. Although I completely agree, and my friends and kids are somewhat sick of me banging on about policy and policy making, and I don't want to conjure up images of the thick of it, but policies are critical because they are a legal mechanism through which we can make change happen, positive change happen, and positive change has happened. However, just like in the thick of it, it's I was very excited. People come up with policies that are just like greenwashing or sound bites or press releases. They are just a response to something that has happened in the media, and they have no way to enforce it. And I think one thing that my time on the local council here in Bletchley and Fenny Stratford has shown is we can have a policy on road parking or whatever, or littering, but unless we have the money and the resource to pay for people to enforce that policy and say, well, these people are in violation of our policy on parking, it's not going to change. So I think it needs to be, a policy is only as good as the enforcementability. Is that a word?
Enforceability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Forgive me, I'm foreign. I'm one of those pesky foreigners that can't come to your country and do your politics and try to make things greener.
Fantastic. Go right ahead.
How dare me?
My sister is watching, and she's asked a question.
Hello, sister.
Her name is Philippa Gray.
Hello, Philippa.
And she couldn't quite work out how to ask a question, so she's done it on WhatsApp to me.
Oh, fantastic! Said, thank you for that.
If no one is allowed gas or a wood burner, how do they keep warm, etc., in a power cut? And I think that's extremely that's a very good point. There are a lot of practical issues. I mean, I don't think that gas will disappear, and I don't think that it will become illegal ever to light a fire in a wood burner. I mean, I think there are issues about how it's done, but wood burners can be actually very.
If they're not burning wood,
well, it depends on the wood, where it's from, and has it been properly dried and treated and everything. You can actually get very, very low emissions of harmful particles. I don't think that's ever going to become illegal, and I think that there are loads of ways of when there's a power cut. I mean, the thing about a varied green power system is that you'll be getting power from lots of different sources. You'd be getting it from air pumps, from ground pumps. I mean, it's actually I don't if you have a mixture of solar, air pumps, ground pumps, wind, hydropower, you're actually you're not going to have. I mean, you know me, Philippa. I am not an electrician. I don't know what all of the electrical issues are.
I could give you one of the technical answers for your sister.
Oh, go on, Gavin. Do that. Yeah.
Which is in a growing trend of having micro batteries in your house. In America, you can make them out of old laptop batteries that they screw to a door. Literally have a door in the utility room with old laptop batteries wired together. The modern, or that's happening now, but you're talking about electric cars. Once a car battery gets less than 80%, 60% efficiency, it's no use for a car. That can still actually run a house. So you can actually have a second-hand car battery in your utility room, powered by your solar panels or your wind turbine. And then when the grid does go off, your sister can actually make a nice cup of tea, piece of toast, read her book by light, all from her battery. Because it's local. Because the problem with electricity is it's not so much generating it. We have lots of waves and wind and stuff. The problem is generating it at the right time so we can store it. Generating it and then being able to store it so we can use it at the right time. Because obviously one of the huge inefficiencies of our power system is the peaks and troughs of power generation don't match the peaks and troughs of when everybody makes a cup of tea after EastEnders on a Tuesday night or whatever night EastEnders is on. So yes, your sister can look forward to having a battery unit in her utility room that will then store. She will be able to charge it up from the solar panels, be able to actually sell back into the grid, and have almost no carbon footprint from it because it will be a second-hand battery.
I've got another one. It's also a technical solution, and picking up on what you said earlier, Catherine, about electric vehicles, you might have come across this already. You can plug in your car into your house, not just to draw electricity from the grid, but also to give electricity back. If you look at, I don't know how many models there are out there at the moment that can do it, but certainly, for example, the Ford of all vehicles, the Ford F-150 fully electric pickup truck. It's a monster. It's absolutely, I love it. It's designed, for example, to provide off-grid power to your power tools, because obviously it's hardworking, men or women who go to a forest far away and they need to power their electric chainsaw, I imagine, to trim the dead wood. And that thing doesn't have to be a Ford, could be probably any number of cars, through the right kind of charger, which are becoming available now. Just by virtue of having your car plugged in, if the grid requires to suck electricity out of your car, it will be able to do so, and you get a credit for it. So there's loads of scope. There's micro generation. There's micro energy storage to go with that, like Gavin just said. And in fact, I think through going back to the policy point we were making earlier, we need to encourage that kind of technology. We can't just say, oh, we'll just get you double glazing. I don't think that's good enough. I think we need to do super insulation, like you said, to the PASIFA standard, which is basically you have an air heat pump which recovers the heat that you've just put 20 quid into your living room to heat it up, and then you open a window because it's all kind of muggy. That 20 quid's just out of the window. With that kind of a heat pump, it will recover that heat, get you the fresh air, and you'll still be warm, and you're 20 quid better off. So I think all of these things together will mean no more power cuts, I would imagine. But obviously that's a utopia. It's a green utopia.
It is a utopia. And I also think the other thing is that I know Philippa, I think, she's just sent me a message saying she's dropped off and she can't get back on, but hopefully she'll see this later. I know that she loves a fire. She loves having a fire. And I don't think that will ever go away from the human experience.
Men like fire.
Yes, well, not just men. She's a fire queen. So
humans, I mean.
Well, as Axel knows, I have a casement burner, which is the main source of heat during the winter, and wood comes from fairly locally, about 70, 80 miles away. His offcuts fire the furnaces done. So to your point of if you actually bother getting the right wood, the actual output of it, because my alternative living in a village is oil or gas.
Yeah.
So sustainable wood burner is far less than my other two options.
Yeah, it's not fossil fuel. It's not fossil fuel, and depending on where you get it from and how you get it,
those nuances matter so much. It's not good enough to just have that label on something and tick the box. You have to be aware of where you get it from, how it's been processed, isn't it?
Has Philippa managed to not get back on because it's after 9 o'clock because the slot
No,
had disappeared?
no. I'm in control of when the show ends. It's still there on live on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. And if
Good Lord.
you miss the live show or you want to recap on all the shows, they all be on the blog and they all be on the YouTube channel.
Fantastic.
Cool.
Well, I have to go and walk my dog soon.
Again? That thing is insatiable.
Again?
That
He is
thing.
insatiable.
The lovely
He has
bald boy.
a lovely old Bruno who is sitting here very patiently at my feet. And I'm going to go and walk him around the block. And he is going to have, his end of evening ritual. So I'm going to leave you guys in a minute or two. Is there anything else that I haven't told you about greenness, about me, about what I think that you want to know? Shoot. No, I've told you everything.
You definitely have not. I'm just thinking, what is the appropriate in this context? No, Catherine, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you in this kind of context, because like Evan said, there's nothing, and one of the reasons why we did it is because there isn't nothing out there. We're not the BBC.
I think
or something, but it's really, really good to talk to people like you who are making a difference in their local area. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a co-chair of the same political party and I like you as a friend. I'm saying that with all the respect I have for another human being who is genuinely, spending their spare time and their hard-earned money to make a difference in the world. So thank you.
Well, back at you, Axel. I think there's quite a lot of us in Milton Keynes. We're kind of bobbing along just under the surface, and we need to make that breakthrough. And if we can we've got several parish councillors, but of course they're not actually with a political label on, but they are Green Party members, like you. And I hope we will have a few more in May when some of the parish council seats come up. Yeah. But that breakthrough to have, if I get elected, or even if I manage to come second, that will be a media story. They'll be saying, ooh, hang on, in Milton Keynes, they've got their first ever Green Party councillor. Or they've got, there was nearly an upset in Only when, long-standing
positive
Tory
thinking. Let's put this image and hope that the universe and all the voters in Olney would conspire and vote Green, make a difference. I've had a lot of good reaction.
Yeah, I've had a lot of good reaction, and across the country, the Greens are taking rural seats from Tories because there are a lot of people in those seats for whom Conservative means that they want to conserve, and the current political climate is not to do so. And I think there's a lot of feeling, as you both mentioned. I'm not a parent myself, but I have nephews, I have step grandchildren, and I have the whole of the world to serve as far as that's concerned. That's a good note to end on, isn't it?
That is a very good note to end on. Gavin, do you have any additions?
No, I will give a plug to my wood supplier though.
Go for it.
Certainlywood.co.uk.
Oh my God! Certainly Wood.
They have been around as father and son business, about a great name as well. But they have their own estate. They grow the trees. They cut the trees. They dry the trees. They ship the trees. Even the bags that they come in, the sacks that they come in, you can fold up and give them back to them and they reuse them. Great family.
Do they hug the trees?
I'm sure they do, actually. I'm sure
I bet they do.
They make great non-chemical firelighters as well, including fire sticks as well.
Fantastic. And this is open to everybody. This is not a commercial enterprise. This is not an advert for a political party. So if you are from another political party, if you are from a sustainable forestry business, like Evan just gave a shout out to, if you are anybody doing anything that makes a difference in this world to make the world a more sustainable and livable place, you're very welcome to have a shout out or come on the show. In fact, I'm going to do a plug as well for this show, because we've got so many Mondays coming up with so many guests. It's amazing. So we're talking to somebody who are found in the Pooleyville newsletter. Subscribe to the Pooleyville newsletter. It's a great local newsletter. It's very brief, very insightful and interesting. And they're called the Home Farm MK. So we're going to have Gabrielle and Co on the show. We're going to have Joe talking about sustainable eating. There's more. Like or dislike, follow, subscribe, all the things that you do on social media. You know how it works. Catherine, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thanks, chaps.
Gavin,
Brilliant
thank
to
you.
meet you, Gavin. And I'll come back and tell you. Excuse me. I'll come back and tell you all about it if I get elected. Okay.
Yes.
I'll be the one outside the council offices shouting and protesting.
Fantastic. Hurrah! Cool. All right. I'm going to glue myself to a cup of tea now and then to my bed. Stay safe.
Yeah. Be well.
See you next Monday.